Ladies and gentlemen, hello from the North Shore Chamber Music Festival. Welcome to our on-stage, off-stage musical bridges series. Today we have a very special gathering. It is a masterclass on auditions to orchestras. We have one of our former recipients, Jacqueline Audas, with us, performing for a whole panel. We have a wonderful conductor, someone I've been making music together for many, many years. Maestro Daniel Raiskin, he is the music director of Slovak Philharmonic Orchestra and Winnipeg Symphony in Canada, and a fantastic violinist and concertmaster of the BBC Symphony Orchestra in London, Igor Yuzefovich. I welcome all of you. I welcome Daniel, Igor, and Jacqueline, and we proceed.
I'll be playing the exposition of Sibelius Violin Concerto, Brahms Symphony No. 1 Violin Solo, and the first movement of Mendelssohn Italian Symphony.
Very nice. I suppose we should just jump right into it, yeah? Jackie, wonderfully played, very nicely, very expressive. I'll just say that the way that we would look at a solo excerpt like that from the panel, it would be very differently whether the person is playing for a concertmaster position or for a section position. There are certainly different expectations, and there are different things that we would look for. If this is an audition for a concertmaster position, we want to see somebody who is going to stand in front of the orchestra and possibly play that concerto. They have to play at a certain level as a soloist would. If it's somebody within a section, we don't have that expectation, but we still want them to show all the qualities of a great musician, all the expressiveness, all the phrasings, all the attention to detail as far as the dynamics, all the correct things. Just doesn't necessarily have to be a soloist per se. It's a little bit difficult to take things out of context and to say things about it without hearing the rest of the audition. But I would say it was a very enjoyable performance for me. I'm not going to get into the specifics of doing a violin masterclass, but I would have loved to get a sense of direction a little bit more. To me, it was a little too episodic. Passage, line, passage, episode, rest, fermata, and during the fermata, I just felt like we were kind of waiting for something to happen, but I didn't feel a sense of being led from one note to another. Especially up there, and all of a sudden it was fast. Right? I would have loved to have a little more of that wonder, as if you're looking around for the first time yourself, even though you know the story inside out. Dynamics-wise, from the very beginning, I think it's nicer to have a bit more of that cold steel, ice feeling, rather than already expect the dynamic you would have. That has to be a complete change.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I don't know if we're allowed to, if maybe just start and try a couple of things in the very opening. Unless Daniel, if you want to jump in and add something as well.
Yeah, I would like to add a few things of a practical matter. It's done differently in different countries and orchestras, but mainly, and all over North America for sure, you need to realize that you're playing behind the screen actually all the rounds. And we as musicians and as one thing, but as an audience, we are listening as much or even more with our eyes as we do with our ears. Now, when you play an audition behind the screen, you don't have the opportunity to show that you lead, that you phrase, that you are musical. And I just want to augment what Igor says, that all that behind the screen must be even more vividly projected when you're doing an audition than when you're on stage and people can see you. Even the way your hair is done or the quality of your dress or attire when you're doing because it's all contribution to people's reception. At audition, everything is completely distilled to what you hear. So all your intentions, dynamical, leading, phrasing, the storytelling must be incredibly clear. And this is what the audition committee, on all levels, whether it's tutti or a leadership position, is looking for. Another thing I would add is that I musically completely agree with Igor that the beginning of Sibelius, I think the entrance of the violin is marked mezzo forte. Very often it's done way too soft. You don't do that, but you throw in immediately the intention of expressivity that doesn't match this Finnish kind of granite, rocks on this hazy, very early morning above the Finnish lakes, and it all becomes too warm. I think that these pictures that you project from behind the screen must be really very, very clear. And the other thing is that you want to project, even like with the pauses and fermatas. Indeed, as Igor said, there's a sense of maturity and solidity, because in the orchestra, very important, the clearance of the intention, so the colleagues can really, you know, follow whether you are in the section or you are leading it. That's my 2 cents, or more.
Okay. Should I try the opening?
Perhaps, maybe, Jackie, maybe because of the time, perhaps if you want to go ahead for the Mozart. I mean, I think these are kind of general things that you can take into account.
Why don't you play the first phrase? I mean, just with what we convey, just to see whether you can show the change. I'm sorry, Jackie. Now I have a feeling that, you know, some notes are vibrated, but there's no cohesion in there you suddenly stop vibrating. Can you think of starting with the same sound, you know, and then developing into something?
Okay, so start without vibrato.
Just move consciously about where you use it and where you don't, because now it's like, yeah, it's very voluntary.
Okay.
Good. Jackie, can I just jump in for just 1 second? I was trying to listen to this. I hear a lot of downbeats. I hear a lot of the first beats of the bars. The funny thing with it is it doesn't start on the downbeat, right? And there isn't anything that's an arrival until pretty much right there. And I don't quite feel that one. I feel when you start, it feels, and even if the way you're cueing it to yourself, it's almost as if that's the downbeat. But then it shifts, and I hear. And there's a certain lean on them. Can you really show that you're playing the rest on the downbeat, on that first bar that you play?
Okay.
And then when you play the note, it's a rebound. It's a softer feeling. And then the whole opening should make you feel completely uneasy. Like you can't find that, you know, you can't settle down. It should not.
How conductors feel when you play this, the soloists, uneasy.
That's the point. Try it. Yeah, already. You see, now you've got this lovely 2-bar arc. Now it sounds like a much longer line.
And if the first note is really colder, not immediately, but
Perhaps
Like
do it
less
more
vibrato and more with a pressure.
Okay.
speed of the bow. Speed of the bow. Aha. Jackie, so do you think that, okay, now we're getting into really nitty-gritty details. The G that you start with, is that louder or softer than the F that you just played? Which one has more weight?
I think the G.
Okay. I would think, if anything, the F may be a bit more weighty, but not with an arrival. Because what I see and what I hear is kind of you shooting the bow through on the G. And you've got this tiny little bit of bow left for the little child A. Now the second note, the second sort of step is the C. And then it just keeps growing from there, yeah? That's the part I mean about being uneasy. It never resolves, it never arrives, it never lets you exhale. It just makes you feel more and more tight.
Okay.
Slow, very slow bow at the beginning of the G. Good. Now, it now feels a lot slower all of a sudden,
Yeah.
right? Because we're still going. That's the whole idea, is to get to that, the shivers down the spine, the G sharp. And then you start rocking it around and kind of developing it.
Okay. Try again?
Yeah, try it again. It was better. I would still use more bow for the A.
Okay.
The speed was good on the G, but you still waited till the tip to play it.
All right.
Much better.
That's it.
We probably should go on.
Yeah.
Jackie, you can skip those long rests. Sorry. Daniel, do you want to go first this time?
Yes, why not? Great, well played. I think it's for me. It's great that you are counting the pauses. I think that if you audition for a concertmaster position with the orchestra, everyone at least expects that you can count these rests. So most probably you would even get the material for the audition where it says you don't need to count the rests. Sometimes they mark it. But what's more important is that there is an incredible sense of awareness that you project with what happens around while you're playing this solo. It's even the great soloists, even if you play a concerto, they exude this incredible sense of awareness about what happens with the orchestra, where it is difficult, where they need to help the conductor to bring this together. Because if you just try to catch the soloist, it becomes a one-way street. When you are a concertmaster in orchestra and as a solo, as much as the presence of your idea and the sound and the direction you are projecting is important, it's also important that you know what and where a horn is playing, when is he or she is breathing, when the woodwinds are coming in, where they cut off, where is it? And I have a feeling that this is a little bit of isolated orchestral violin part yet to become a solo in the orchestra where I can sing along as a horn player when you play da 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 dee da 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 with sextuple, for example, and not have to a sense that I don't know where it goes. So this is where I would like to have a bit better sense of awareness, really corresponding to what happens around. Igor, you want to add to that?
No, that's exactly my thoughts, and I was going to say that goes for dynamics as well, knowing that when you're handing it off to the clarinet at the end of your line, and the fact that they can play incredibly soft, absolutely incredibly soft, and it almost becomes a game of who can outdo each other. Also knowing what you're coming out of, and with the tutti violins going one, and from that same character, when you start, if you start, it's almost like the start of the Brahms violin concerto. He repeats it twice and then he develops it. So the first to me is always about, is this the right way? Is this the right thing I want to say? Yes, it's a solo. Yes, you have to stand out from the group, but perhaps not everything right away. Otherwise, you'll have nothing left for the third development. And then you can be a little more assured the second time. Yes, that was correct. And then, sorry, that slide, to me, it's very contentious. I'll be honest. It sounds really nice, perhaps in a concerto or in a big piece. For me personally, it's not the right character.
Okay.
It becomes a little too much about you,
Okay.
rather than the bigger picture. For me, I would just keep it more noble and a little bit more dramatic in a way, maybe. You have plenty chances to be musical within the line later. Seemed as soon after that B, you seemed to kind of lose the pulse, and it got slower and slower and slower. And that's the trouble when you're playing this by yourself in an audition. To keep that pulse, dum bum bum. And especially this transition one. It's amazing how many times we hear it, and Daniel, I'm sure you'll agree. You get to that spot, and it's two completely different tempos all of a sudden.
Three.
Or three, yeah. You've got the eighth notes, you got the triplets, and then you've got the sixteenths. Three different ideas. So keep that in your mind.
Just a question, Jackie. Have you ever practiced this quadruples runs of the 16ths against the metronome that goes really triplets?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Have you done that? I think this is where you want to start with. That this tempo you're playing, da 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 ti da da da, that your metronome goes. That's the first way I would start. You would immediately feel where you are not in sync with the because one thing is the woodwinds that are playing that, there might be some question mark about there, but you have to deal with the timpani, and these guys, if they're good, they really know where the beat is, So this is where, and then after that, so again, it's not a place where you try to fit with a horn player because he is listening, or she, to the timpani as well. So this is definitely the way to practice. And when we conduct that spot, we don't conduct the concertmaster and the horn solo. We conduct the triplets, so that this frame is completely set, and it gives the freedom to for the solo voice. And then the other thing is that also it's in a score, it's very unambiguous because the solo violin part is marked like you stop playing way too soon in comparison to what the tutti is playing. You need to make a decision until what point with the first violin section you are actually playing, and then you start the solo. Various concertmasters do it a different way. The way it's marked in the part is that you actually stop like a few bars before. I brought up the score here. I'm not sure. Yes, it
splits up. The divisi splits up. Well, actually, in the part, the divisi splits up just the bar before E, not just at the beginning. But I mean, I generally kind of stop somewhere a bar or two before.
Yeah.
Yeah, about a bar before. You don't want to be too cold for it. You don't want to just sit and wait,
No.
But you want to be still part of the fabric. You don't want it to be all of a sudden something completely different.
Igor, may I suggest something? Why don't you? Is it possible that maybe you play from the 4 bars before E? I don't know if it works in Zoom, and then you take over this line. Connecting so that there is kind of the sense of tempo and pulse where you're coming from. Just to
I'll try it. We'll have a delay, I'm afraid, so I'll try it. So 4 before E, yeah?
Yeah.
So Jackie, just a small thing. Those two little statements. Do you know what happens after you finish playing, after your G sharp?
The first one?
Both. So what comes next in that empty measure? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just...
Da, da, da,
Right. So when you finish it, if you do that, they will have no idea when to come in. If you do... And same thing. And you give it to them because it's a conversation, right?
Okay.
Just those, yeah. Be careful that when you get sitting on that B natural, doesn't mean stopping. Yes, you've arrived at the top, but the heartbeat is still going.
Right.
One and all the way. Yeah. Try again from the top. And maybe still a bit more difference between the two statements.
Okay.
It all right now sounds too similar. Yeah, and that one, make sure that one doesn't decay at all. That one needs to carry to the very last row of the very last seat.
Okay.
Because you notice the section doesn't come in until the next bar.
Right.
It's almost like you want to carry over those rests.
I think I'm afraid we have to carry on if there's a chance to hear some Mendelssohn. You're playing also some Mendelssohn, yeah? Okay.
Maestro.
It's your turn, Igor.
Okay, very nice, very nice. I like the attention to detail that you did, and there's a lot of, obviously, there were things that you really carefully looked at, as far as the length of the notes, the dynamics, all of that is very nice. For me, it's a little bit lacking the vivace part. It's a little too comfortable, too kind of, you worked hard at it and you want to present it nicely and everything is correct. But it's missing that flightiness. And it's especially noticeable towards the bottom of the page when you go into the triplets. What I would love to feel is, without any dynamic inflection, I want to feel that little subtle motion. Like the wave on a flat ocean, it's still never flat. There's a little bit of a wobble. With the rests in the beginning, although it's nice that you're doing them, you're not completely connecting it. I think the idea should be more horizontal on the last notes, on the A's, not necessarily clipped. I think that becomes a little problematic. You know, it's a lyrical line still.
Sure.
Then, this long line that you have around bar, what is it, 75? You know, there is no dynamic, but as far as I remember correctly, we always drop down quite a bit there. You've got a long way to go, and you were kind of pounding those forzandos out. That kind of sense a little bit. I may be overstating it. But let's try from the beginning, if you don't mind, and lightness.
So I keep the first pizzicato just a little bit more compact, not too broken.
Okay.
Yeah, it just needs to, like a nice spumante bottle of wine opening. Yeah, ringing, but all the notes together, more or less.
Can it be more horizontal across the string rather than away from the string, so you don't get that ping on the E? Kind of. Yeah, yeah, see, that's a little bit too, like you're pulling the string. I would do more on the bottom strings and less on the E. You'll get the E anyway. And if you don't, somebody else will, so that's fine. Yeah. Slice it rather than chop it. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. This is turning into a pizzicato masterclass, sorry. Try like a straight finger, and like you're slicing a pencil with a knife, like you're sharpening it.
Yeah.
Yes.
More forward than to the right. Yes. Yes. That's it.
Yeah. Good. All right, then go on from there. Very nice. Jackie, two things. In a solo sonata, lovely. In an orchestral audition, that won't work. Because if you're being musical and you sit on, not do that, or they will do something differently, and then it's not going to be together.
Right.
So that musicality has to be within a very, very careful, strict rhythmic structure. So
And
if
one
you
other
want to show,
thing, One other small thing, if I may. Da-dee-ram, da-dee-ram, da-dee-ra-ra-ram, la-da-da-da-da. Don't arrive there. Da-da-da-da-da-dee-da-da-da-dee to the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel, how do you view those? Because they're not accents.
No,
on
they're
this.
more like little diminuendos. Hiram, aram, aram. More like in Schubert. Accents are sforzati, and these are more linear.
Okay.
Great. Jackie, I would only suggest two things. In those rests, prepare earlier, especially, each of those entrances. You come in on time, but there's a little click or a glitch or something every time you start them. It will feel like it's late if that happens. It kind of gives us the sense that you're not prepared for them. And again, as Daniel said, behind the screen, all of those things will be amplified for us because we don't have these senses. We only go with this. And so this becomes doubled. We hear everything that we normally wouldn't if we were looking at it, right?
And you have a panel of 10 or how many sitting there and relentlessly doing this, just trying to feel whether you really have the same pulse over the course of 4 or 6 bars. It's especially wonderful in the second movement of the Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, where you see everyone is trying to beat that tempo, and so this is important. And I still think that the way it's structured, the first 2 bars are together, then there are 2 bars each by bar, and this sense you want to project more. One.
Cool.
All right.
Give it one last try, and I think we must move on.
Okay.
Good.
Very good. Very good. Also a great excerpt to practice with the metronome. It's amazing what we uncover. Even for myself, once in a while I'll put it on just to put my mind at ease, and it does the opposite, because it's like, oh my God.
And here I'd like to add something that I learned from my son, who's a very good, excellent jazz drummer. Well, people who play jazz, they never practice with a metronome which is set on the beat. They always use the syncopation, the offbeat of the metronome to practice with. So if you practice, don't practice. It's have your beats off. So that's a little bit confusing, but that's incredibly helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for beautiful playing. This is the moment when we can ask Meister Raiskin and Igor Yuzefovich questions. So, Jacqueline, do you have anything in mind?
How do you suggest preparing mentally for auditions?
By taking as many as you can.
Yeah.
Every single one.
I think the most important thing about the auditions, and I remember playing a few myself, is that as much as you want to have the job, this is the last thing you want to care about when you play an audition. This is what most of the time prevents people from actually concentrating on the most important thing, to deliver the goods. They start thinking ahead, and that makes you concentrating on other things, and that comes with taking more auditions. And sometimes you don't need as many to get to some point. Also, it's a strange exercise, and I don't know how to do it, but it is very different when you know that there are 2 or 3 people are sitting behind the screen and you're on the other side and you're playing for them. The first time you do that, because we never do it in a normal setting of class or playing concerts or exams, auditions, it's a very strange feeling playing for the wall, and it's different than just playing alone in the class. So if there's a chance for you to have the screen to play Sibelius with a pianist or without, and you have 2-3 friends sitting on the other side, just to immerse yourself into that setup, which is very strange, is good. I think it's good. Yeah.
Absolutely right. I would add also, there's some people who, they do an audition for Philadelphia, for example, and they go and they research, how does Philly play Brahms? How does Philly play Mozart? And they think, oh, I have to fit into a certain style or a certain narrative. And, maybe 60, 70 years ago, that would have applied when, Philly or Chicago, and they had their one way of playing. But in today's world, the musicians come from all over the world. The sound is so much more homogenized. There's so much more variety, and it all depends on who is on the podium of that week. Yes, there's a style that the orchestra plays in, but I don't think that would ever be, that's not how we play Mozart, and that just wouldn't work. You have the panel is made up usually of the most varied musicians with very different personalities, very different mindsets and ideas of how certain things should be played. I think for me personally, it became a completely different exercise after I sat on the panel for the first time. And having that perspective of sitting on the other side of the screen, it's like, you were blind before and now you can see. It's a completely different world. And the next time I went out to play an audition, it felt entirely different. There wasn't this, I'm trying to please somebody who can't see. And the worst part is you can't gauge their reaction. Like in a recital, you walk out and you see people, they're smiling, they're happy to be there. In an audition, you walk out and you're expecting this, cartoonish image that they're sitting there just waiting for you to miss a note to put a big X through your name. And, it's just not the case. all we want is for somebody to come out and play something that we would enjoy. And yes, of course, you know, if the technical elements have to be there, and that's beside the question, but play something that shows that you are trying to make something out of every note. You're trying to show an understanding of the piece, also very importantly, an understanding of why that excerpt is on the list. Because they're not just random excerpts. They're not often the most difficult technically things. They're there, you know, slow movement of a Mozart symphony. Why is that there? Because we want to hear the quality of the sound when you play piano, or the variety of pianissimo to piano to mezzo piano, you know, all of those things. So almost delve into the reason why that excerpt is on the list, and that in a way will lead you to the answer of what you have to do. And then with that mindset, when you walk out and you say, I'm just showing you what you've asked, I'm answering your question, and that, I think, will help put your mind at ease. It's never easy.
Yeah, it's also, and Igor would attest to that, it's also indeed very different, especially when, let's say, there's a concertmaster audition, or even an assistant concertmaster audition, or it's a sectional position in the first violins, let's say. Even the way the body language works, you know, when a person is on trial in the orchestra after audition, might contribute to him or her getting or not getting the job, because some orchestras are very alert to if someone, for example, moves too much or a lot, or not moves enough, whether it's a concertmaster chair or a sectional chair. But the interesting thing about the panel, and that I can say as conductor, music director, you always actually speak as last, as not to inflict any kind of opinion on the musicians of the section. You know, a position of music director, kind of, you can, in a way, the weight of your position can influence someone's opinion if someone wants to please music director. But that leads to the fact that I am more often than less surprised by the variety of opinions about one and the same thing that seems completely clear to me. Let's say I'm very excited about someone, and it's just not coming across to the other 9 members of the panel, or I am absolutely all thumbs down, and they're just telling about how wonderful it is. So it's really, there's no right or wrong. It's because there's so many different people. Everyone listens to something else, but their objective criteria, exactly as Igor says, is why the audition is at all taking place, the purpose of it. Because very often people who come to audition have even played in that section, or even as a guest concertmaster already. So you would think everyone knows how they fit or not into the section, and yet audition is there to reveal these specific things that you need to be prepared of, you know, mentally, like, why is it that we're doing that? For some instruments, when they play concertos, they insist on even not having a piano. For example, for tuba, for bass, double bass auditions, very often material, the solo pieces are played with a piano, because the frequencies are different, and depending on an audition room, it can be revealing more.
To continue a little bit on the fact that Igor just mentioned, that we are today living in a much smaller village than we used to, musically speaking. And what was expected 50, 60 years ago, that the applicants would be fitting into certain style of an orchestra that they are applying for and playing audition to, is no longer the case. But are there any, well, in your experience, both of you, are there any particular differences that you have experienced? For example, Igor working in the United States, then in Asia, now in the UK, and Daniel, you've been working in the Netherlands, in Poland, in Germany, in Canada. Can you point to certain maybe still expectations that are there in different countries or continents?
Sure. I mean, it's not everywhere that the complete audition is taken behind the screen. Very often in Europe, it's resorted to the first round, or maybe the first and second round, and then the final round will be open. Also, many orchestras have the policy that regardless of the position, a complete orchestra is summoned to the audition. So the decision is not made by a panel, but by everyone in the orchestra. And that can be even more confusing because, I mean, from our perspective, I mean, what does the esteemed triangle player know about how to play the violin? But yet it just answers the question. We are all looking for something which is beyond the actual instrument play, which we all accept needs to be on the highest level. There's something that needs to be immediately appealing and attractive in the way you make music so that you can fit with this group of people, especially if it's the full orchestra. I would argue that when it is still there, the questions of style, when you talk about the wind players more than about the string players, if you're auditioning the first or second clarinet or principal trumpet, the style of that particular section, whether it's more European, more French or German, or more North American, plays much larger role than it does in a very cosmopolitan string family. I would argue that this is where this difference still is. I mean, it still creates a stir when a French oboist is now engaged as a principal oboe of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and you would never have a French clarinet player win an audition in a German orchestra. These differences are more distinct, but for string players, I think it's all embracing them.
Yeah. And Vadim, stylistically, again, back in the day when the world was much more divided, yes, perhaps, a piece would have been played one way in America, a different way in Germany, a third way in Asia. But now when, you look at Hong Kong Philharmonic or Singapore Symphony, even the players who are from those areas, they may have studied in Germany or in the US, or their teachers come from a completely different background. So it's all so mixed and mixed up now that it's very difficult to say things are played differently in different countries. A style of audition, yes, it can be. The rules are different. In London, for example, there's a staff pianist or two or three at all the auditions that we've had. So we get to hear Mozart and the concerto with the piano in the first round, which is a huge luxury for anybody taking the audition. I mean, imagine how much easier it is to play Sibelius with the piano, and you've had a rehearsal with them. You've had a 10-minute rehearsal for the exposition. I mean, it's an unheard luxury in the States. And then you go and you play Mozart, and it's much easier to change the style, and then you're left on your own to do the excerpts. Sometimes, if it's a concertmaster audition, for example, in Singapore, the entire orchestra is sitting there on stage, and you are in the orchestra playing those excerpts. So you're not standing on stage behind the screen. You are, maybe it's mostly in the final round, but they'll have an assistant conductor probably on stage with you, and you'll play from C to F, and you'll get to play the solo in the orchestra, which is 1,000 times simpler and easier mentally than to stand there by yourself on stage and play Heldenleben. Here you are, you're playing with the instruments, and you get to interact, and you get some feedback from the people right around you. So the procedural things are different, but put yourself on the other side of the screen and say you are participant number 147. We've been there since 9 o'clock in the morning. It's now 4:30 in the afternoon. We've heard the same 3 excerpts, the same 4 concertos, and we're almost taking bets on who's going to play the next Tchaikovsky violin concerto. Because, how many times are we going to hear Sibelius? How many times are we going to hear Tchaikovsky? All we want to do is to hear something that's pure, different, interesting, so that we put down our pens and paper and pencils, and we just listen, and we just enjoy it. And we don't think, okay, here comes 147. All right, 148 is next. 75 more. So it's don't put these unrealistic goals in front of you, or of saying I have to play everything perfectly. Because we don't want that. We don't need that. We just want something to say, oh, there's a fresh breath of air, something different, somebody with personality in their playing.
Don't be discouraged by the numbers Igor quotes. It's not everywhere that you would be number 147. Sometimes you will be number 63 only, and in other places you would have to deal with 548 applications. I mean, that's the sad reality. I must say one thing which seems kind of funny, but it does play a role. Make very sure that your tuning gear, whatever you have on your instrument, is flawlessly, perfectly able to tune your violin in any humidity, dryness, circumstances within the whatever 20, 30 seconds. Because the moment you're going for more than that, huge cross is next. You just don't have the time and luxury to do it in the orchestra. So I'm always, and then these people, that are almost lost, or they play, stars from heavens. They really play well, but why the heck it takes so much time to tune the fiddle or a viola? I would never understand. And it happens. Igor can tell me. Can
Absolutely. It's almost, you almost want to applaud after they've tuned it finally. They've eaten up half of their audition time. Yeah. Jackie, have you taken any auditions yet?
Yeah, a couple.
In the US?
Mm-hmm.
And how's your experience been?
Not great.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about results or anything like that, but the overall feeling, the overall experience.
Yeah. I have sort of like almost like a panic attack, like physical reaction, like as soon as I walk on the stage.
Sure.
So I don't play like I want to, and I feel really like, so yeah, I think just continuing to take more, hopefully that'll get better. But that doesn't happen in performance.
There are so many methods and techniques and ways, whether it's meditation or just gathering your thoughts before you play. And I remember one of my former teachers, sadly no longer with us, he would always say, just when you're backstage, even for solo concerts, you're backstage, you're about to walk on, start the very first couple of notes. Just take the violin down, put it up, start it as if you're playing it. Do it 7 times, and just with the whole concentration, the entire mindset, as if you're starting to play it. 7 times, then walk out and play. And it is all mental. I mean, this is our biggest enemy. It's our best friend, and it's our biggest enemy, because we start thinking, what if? And the difficult part is finding that path towards turning that voice off and turning on, let's enjoy it, let's make music, let's keep on top of everything that's coming up and happening around. I wish there was a magic button or a solution, but it's very individual for everybody. I mean, from a soloist perspective, Vadim, you obviously have been exposed to so many people dealing with the same mindset.
Well, we're just as exposed to panic attacks like everybody else. At the end of the day, it is essentially the same. We go in front of people and we play for them, and your conscious or subconscious works sometimes against you, as we all well know. And what you, Igor, said, and what Daniel said, the same thing. Do it again. That's the biggest medicine, the strongest medicine we can find. I'm all for meditation and for concentration and for all sorts of techniques, but at the end of the day, it is some kind of a callus that we grow on our fingers against strings, in a way, it is some kind of a callus that we grow on ourselves, on our psyche, when we go on stage again and again and again. I think we not in the sense that we become numb, not at all. We actually become more aware of ourselves and of how to deal with ourselves on stage in that, let's call it, stressful situation. But I don't think it should stop us from making music at all. Quite the opposite.
Just to add, if I may, just try to take out of the equation the idea that you're actually trying to be better than someone else. I mean, this is where it all starts. It's not a competition in a way, because at the end of the day, the only person who needs to be hugely, largely, overwhelmingly satisfied about your own playing is you yourself. And this is where it all starts, because you're trying to be your best and satisfy yourself without killing potential joy of actually doing it. Because with piano, without just exposition of Sibelius and Mendelssohn Symphony, without the rest of the orchestra, there still must be a component of joy doing that. And if these two things lead you, like really enjoying what you're doing and not trying to prove something, not competing, rather than trying to do your own best, I think these two pillars should be helping you. I think it was even it's the famous principal trumpet player of the Chicago Symphony, Mr. Herson, I think, he said to his students that the whole idea of trying to be better than someone else is not working, because the only person you want to be better than is you yourself from yesterday. You want to be better today than you were yesterday. And just start there. Who cares how others play?
There's nothing you can do about it.
That's it. But you can do a lot about how you play.
Well, on this note, I know that Master Raiskin has to go and hear an audition.
That's it. Principal viol audition.
So we wish you a lot of joy and an easy audition. We wish Jacqueline lots of luck, and we thank both Master Raiskin and Igor Yuzefovich for sharing their thoughts, giving us their time, and till very soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all the very best. Good luck.